Once again, good day everyone. So for today's video, I'm gonna talk about the rules of softball from rule 9 to 12. So I am your reporter for today's video. I am Neil the CABILONA. Let's start. Rule 9. The dead ball or ball in play. So the section 1 of the rule 9, it is called the ball is dead. So the ball is dead and not in play in the following circumstances. A. When the ball is batted illegally. So, magkakaroon ng dead ball kapag nabat ang bola illegally. And second, when the batter steps from one box to another, when the pitcher is, for the FP, taking the signal or appears to be taking the signal from the pitcher's plate, or SP only steps on the pitching plate. And C, when no pitch is declared. So, magkakaroon ng dead ball kapag nadeklara ng umpire na walang pitch na mangyayari within the plate. Next is the ball is in play. So, the ball is in play naman kapag at the start of the game and each half inning when the pitcher has the ball while standing in his pitching position and the plate umpire has called play ball. Next is for the section 3, delayed dead ball. So there are 5 situations when a violation of the rule occurs. An umpire recognizes it and the ball remains live until the conclusion of the play. These situations are: una, an illegal pitch, kakaroon ng delayed dead ball. Second is the catcher's obstruction. Third is for the FP plate umpire interference. Pang-apat is the obstruction. And lastly, the detached equipment contacting a thrown ball, a pitch ball, or a fair batted ball. So, tapos na tayo sa rule 9. Let's proceed to the rule number 10, which is the umpires. So, section 1, protest that will not be received. So, mangyayari ang protest na hindi nare-receive or nare-reconsider if they are based solely on a decision involving the accuracy or of judgment on the part of an umpire, or if the team lodging the protest won the game. And mga examples na protest na hindi kinikonsider ay yung whether a batted ball was fair or foul. So, hindi ito tinatanggap or kinikonsider. And letter B is whether a runner was safe or out. And letter C, whether a pitch ball was a strike or a ball. So, these 3 are the examples of a mga protest na hindi kinikonsider. So, section 2, protest that will receive. So, ito naman yung mga protest na tinatanggap or kinikonsider. These are the following types: the misinterpretation of a playing rule, failure of an umpire to apply the correct rule to a given situation. So, because not all umpires are perfect, nagkakamali din sila. And C is the failure to impose the correct penalty for a given violation kapag mali yung pagtawag ng isang violation or failure mali yung pagbigay ng penalty sa isang violation. And take note, the protest for the above must be made before the next pitch or before all infielders have left fair territory, or if on the last play of the game before the umpires leaving the playing field. Next is the section 3, the protest involving judgment and interpretation of rule. So protest may involve both of a matter of judgment and the interpretations of a rule. And ito yung mga example ng situation: with one out and the runners on second and third bases, the batter flied out. The runner on third tagged up after the catch. The player on second did not. And for the section 4, notification of intent to lodge protest. So this must be made immediately before the next pitch. And exception, player ineligibility, and the manager or acting manager of the protesting team shall immediately notify the plate umpire that the game is being continued under protest. The plate umpire shall, in turn, or notify the opposing manager and official scorekeeper. Next is the section 5, time to lodge an official protest. So the official written protest must be uh, filled within or filed within a reasonable time. So A, in the absence of a league or tournament rule fixing the time limit for filing a protest should be considered if filled or filed within a reasonable time, depending upon the nature of the case and the difficulty for obtaining the information on which to base the protest. And also within 48 hours after the scheduled time of the contest of, is generally considered a reasonable time. And sa section 6 naman, information required for written protest. So the formal written protest should contain the following information. Una, the date, the time, and place of the game. Second is the names of the umpire and scorers. Next is the section 7, the result of the protest. So this decision made on a protested game must result in one of the following. Una, the protest is found invalid and the game score stands as played. And next, when a protest is allowed for misinterpretation of a playing rule, the game is replayed from the point at which the incorrect decision was made with the decision corrected. So we are done with the rule 10. Let's proceed to the rule 11, which is protests. Section 1, protests that will not be received. So the protest shall not be received or considered if they are based solely on a decision involving the accuracy of judgment on the part of an umpire, or if the team lodging the protest won the game. And ito yung mga examples na hindi ko consider whether a batted ball whether a batted ball was fair or foul, and whether a runner was safe or out. Next is section 2, the protests that will be received. So ito yung mga protest na kinoconsider naman. Is interpretation of playing rule, failure of an umpire to apply the correct rule to a given situation. So very similar lang sa rule 10 or 9, I think, if I am not mistaken. So let's proceed to the section 3, protests involving judgment and interpretation of rule. Protests may involve both of matter and judgment and interpretation of a rule, and the example of this situation are with one out of the runners on second and third bases, the batter flied out, and the runner on the third tagged up the catch, or after the catch, the player on the second did nothing. Section 4 is the notification of intent to lodge protest. So the notification of intent protest must be made immediately before the next pitch. And exception, player eligibility, and the manager or acting manager of the protesting team shall immediately notify the plate umpire that the game is being continued under protest. The plate umpire shall, in turn, notify the opposing manager and official scorekeeper. Section 5 of the Rule 11, time to lodge an official protest. So it must be filed within a reasonable time, uh, in the absence of a league or tournament rule fixing the time limit for filing a protest should be considered if filed within a reasonable time, depending upon the nature of the case and the difficulty for obtaining the information on which to base the protest, and also within 48 hours after the scheduled time of the contest, it is generally considered a reasonable time. Section 6 is the information required for written protest. So, the formal written protest should contain the following information: the date, the time, and the place of the game, the names of the umpires and scorers, and Section 7, um, the result of the protest. So, this decision made on a protested game nagkaka-result sa if the protest is found invalid and the game score stands as played, and also when a protest is allowed for misinterpretation of the rule, the game is replayed from the point at which the incorrect decision was made with the decision corrected. Let's proceed to the last rule, which is the scoring. So the section 1, the official scorer shall keep records of each game as outlined in the following rules. So, pag score ka, dapat kinikip mo yung records ng bawat laro. And shall have the sole authority to make all decisions involving judgment and dapat may authority. And for example, it is the scorer's responsibility to determine whether a batter's advance to first base is the result of a hit on or an error. However, a scorer shall not make a decision which conflicts with the official playing rules or with an umpire's decision. So, doon lang nagkakaroon ng walang ano yung scorer, hindi siya pwedeng mag-decide kapag nagkakaroon ng conflicts uh, laban sa official playing rules or about sa decision ng umpire. Next is the section 2, the box score. So each player's name and the position or positions to be played shall be listed in order in which he batted or would have batted unless the player is legally substituted, ejected, or removed from the game, or the game ends before his turn at bat. So each player dapat may ano sa um, may lista ng kanilang mga pangalan or position or ano yung position nilalaro nila or ano yung nalaro nila. Unless kapag ang isang player is na-substitute or na-eject or napatanggal sa isang laro. So section 3 is the base hits shall not be recorded. So the base hit shall not be scored in the following cases: when a runner is forced out by a batted ball or would have been forced out except for a fielding error. So kapag ganito yung situation, uh, hindi nire-record yung isang base hit. Next is the sacrifice fly balls, section 4. So it is scored when with less than 2 outs. The batter scores a runner with a fly ball which is caught, or the ball or the line drive handled by an outfielder or an infielder running in the outfield is dropped and a runner scores, and in the scorer's judgment the runner could have scored after the catch had the fly ball been caught. Let's proceed to section 5, the runs batted in. So um, this run is a run scored because of one of the following reasons: a safe hit, a sacrifice bunt or slap hit for the FP, or sacrifice fly for the FP, both for the FP and SP. And next is the section 6, the pitcher credited with a win. So, makakredit ang isang pitcher ng panalo for this for example, for this following situations, when he is the starting pitcher and has pitched at least 4 innings, and his team was not only in the lead when he is replaced but remains in the lead for the remainder of the game. So kapag you starting your kapag yung first pitcher nyo is naka-pitch ng at least 4 innings, and also kapag kahit napalitan na siya, yung team nyo is nakakuha pa rin yung kalamangan. So uh, na na credit yung isang pitcher na kung bakit sila nanalo for that game. But yung unang pitcher is yung nag-set ng momentum. For the section 7, the pitcher charged with a loss. So kapag dito naman nasisisi yung isang pitcher sa pagkatalo, regardless of the number of the innings he has pitched, if he is replaced when his team is behind in the score and his team thereafter fails to tie the score or gain the lead. So kapag pinalitan siya, uh, kapag pinalitan yung isang pitcher ng kanyang teammate, and yung kanilang team is behind sa isang team ng sa scoring, and kahit napalitan na, di pa rin nila na-achieve na itayo yung score or makuha man lang yung kalamangan. So doon nag-occur yung pitcher charge with a loss. So section 8, the game summary. So this summary lists of the following items in this order: the score by innings and the final score. So nagkakaroon ng summary sa score ng innings and also sa final score ng game, or the runs batted in, by whom hit, yung mga runs na bat, and kung sino yung naka-hit. uh, Kinukuha nila yung game summary ng bawat laro. Next is the section 9, which is the stolen bases for the fast pitch only. So these are credited to a runner whenever he advances one base unaided by a hit, a put out, an error, a forced out, a fielder's choice, a pass ball, a wild pitch, or an illegal pitch. And next is the section 10, records of the forfeited games. So all records of a forfeited game shall be included in the official records except that of a pitcher's won-loss record. So sinasali ang records ng mga forfeited games sa official records, maliban man lang sa yung mga pitchers won or loss record. So that's all for this uh, presentation of the rules of softball from 9 to 12. And thank you for listening.